You feed the cat every morning at 7. Not because you decided to, because the cat decided you would. It sits by the bowl. It stares. It makes that specific sound it only makes for you, and somehow your body is already moving toward the food cabinet before your brain catches up. You think you own the cat, but look at what just happened. Could an animal actually domesticate a human? Not as a metaphor, not as a joke, as a real biological and behavioral process. Because when you dig into the science of domestication, what you find is that the line between who tamed whom has always been a lot blurrier than you think. Here is what domestication actually is. It is not just an animal that lives with humans. It is not a wild creature that tolerates your presence. Domestication is a multigenerational process in which one species reshapes the behavior, physiology, and even the genetics of another species to serve its own survival. Read that again. One species reshapes another. So the question is not whether animals are smart enough to domesticate us. The question is whether they already have, and we simply never noticed because we were too busy congratulating ourselves for being the clever ones. To understand how that might work, you need to understand how domestication happened in the first place. For most of human history, you did not seek out animals to domesticate. The animals came to you. Wolves were the first. Around 15,000 years ago, possibly earlier, a population of wolves began following human hunting groups. Not because humans invited them, because the wolves figured out that humans left scraps. Bold wolves, the ones that could tolerate proximity to humans without fleeing or attacking, got more food. Shy wolves, the ones that ran, got nothing. Over generations, the bold ones reproduced more. The bold ones passed their temperament to their offspring. And slowly, without any human ever drawing up a plan, a new kind of animal emerged. One that sought humans out. One whose entire survival strategy was built around human presence. Now here is the part that changes everything. Researcher Brian Hare at Duke University has studied what he calls the domestication hypothesis. And what he found is that the domestication of dogs did not just change dogs. It changed humans too. Dogs altered human social behavior. They extended human perception. They became a sensory and emotional appendage of the human group. Humans who bonded with dogs were more successful hunters. They survived longer. They had more children. The dogs did not just adapt to humans. They pulled humans toward a new way of living, a new dependency, a new social structure built around interspecies bonds. The wolves did not plan this, but they caused it, and causation is what evolution runs on. This pattern is not unique to dogs. Look at cats, a species that domesticated itself so thoroughly that researchers still debate whether cats are truly domesticated at all. Around 10,000 years ago, wildcats in the Middle East began gravitating toward early agricultural settlements. Not because humans bred them, not because humans selected them, because grain stores attracted rodents, rodents attracted cats, and cats that were less afraid of humans ate better than cats that were terrified of them. Carlos Driscoll's landmark 2007 study, tracing feline genetics across 5 wildcat subspecies, confirmed that domestic cats are descended from a Near Eastern wildcat population that simply moved itself into the human world. The cats chose the arrangement. The cats maintained the arrangement. The cats, in a very real sense, trained humans to leave grain stores accessible and to tolerate a predator living in the home. And humans complied. For 10,000 years, humans fed cats, sheltered cats, mourned dead cats, and in ancient Egypt actually worshipped cats as divine beings. Try to explain, from a purely rational standpoint, why the species with the larger brain decided to venerate the species with the smaller one. But cats and dogs are just the easiest examples. The deeper argument is this: any species that successfully modifies human behavior across generations has, by a functional definition, domesticated us. And there are more candidates than you might expect. Consider oxytocin. When you look into the eyes of a dog, your brain releases oxytocin, the same hormone that floods your system when you hold your newborn child, the same hormone that creates pair bonding between romantic partners. Brian Hare's colleague Miho Nagasaki at Azabu University in Japan documented this in 2015 in a paper published in Science. Not only do humans release oxytocin when gazing at dogs, but the dogs release oxytocin too. It is a mutual hormonal loop, a feedback system that pulls 2 species together at the neurochemical level. Dogs did not engineer this, but they benefit from it enormously. Billions of dollars of food, shelter, veterinary care, and human emotional energy flow every year toward an animal that has inserted itself into the deepest bonding circuitry of the human brain. If a pharmaceutical company created a molecule that did that, you would call it a drug. When a dog does it with its eyes, you call it love. Here is the counterintuitive truth that biologist David Rindos laid out decades ago in his work on the coevolution of plants and animals. Domestication is almost never a one-sided act of control. It is almost always a coevolutionary relationship in which both species change together. The human who domesticated wheat also became dependent on wheat. The human who domesticated cattle also built an entire civilization around cattle. You did not conquer these species. You entered a relationship with them, and the relationship changed you as profoundly as it changed them. Your gut bacteria changed to digest dairy when you started herding cows. Your jaw structure changed because cooked grain replaced raw meat. Your daily schedule, your social organization, your concept of property, your religions, your wars, all of it reshaped by the animals and plants that supposedly served you. You think you domesticated the cow, but the cow restructured your entire civilization. So what would it actually look like for animals to domesticate humans in a more intentional sense? Here is where it gets strange, because we already have evidence that some species are capable of it. Dolphins in Laguna, Brazil have been documented coordinating with human fishermen for over 150 years. The dolphins drive schools of mullet toward human nets, then signal humans with specific head and tail movements indicating when to cast. Biologist Fabio Dora Jorge published research in 2012 showing that this behavior is culturally transmitted among dolphins. Young dolphins learn it from older dolphins. The strategy is passed down through dolphin generations. Now ask yourself who trained whom here. The dolphins communicate. The humans respond. The humans cast when the dolphins signal. The humans who cooperate catch more fish and return to the same spot. The dolphins that cooperate eat better and teach their young to return too. From the dolphin's perspective, they have identified a large, bipedal tool user that responds reliably to specific behavioral cues and provides consistent foraging advantages. That is a domestication relationship. That is an animal shaping human behavior to serve the animal's survival. And the humans kept showing up. For 150 years. The question is not whether animals are capable of influencing human behavior. They clearly are. The question is whether that influence crosses the threshold into something you can honestly call domestication. And the more carefully you define domestication, the harder it becomes to say no. What does domestication require? Behavioral modification across generations. Check. Mutual dependency between the two species. Check. Alteration of one species in response to selective pressure created by the other. Check. Genetic change over time. And here is where it gets uncomfortable. Researcher Gregory Cochrane and anthropologist Henry Harpending argued in their work on recent human evolution that humans have continued to evolve in response to agricultural and domestic animals at a rate faster than almost any period in pre-agricultural history. The animals we lived with changed our gene expression. They changed our immune systems. They gave us new diseases that reshaped our immune architecture. They selected for humans who could metabolize their products, live alongside them, care for them, form emotional bonds with them. The animals did not write a plan, but they exerted selective pressure. And evolution does not need a plan. It only needs differential survival. Here is the modern mirror. Right now, somewhere in the world, a person is canceling plans because their dog needs to be fed. A person is adjusting their work schedule around a cat's vet appointment. A person is spending money they do not have on an animal that gives nothing back in any economically quantifiable sense. And that person does not feel trapped. They feel love. They feel purpose. They feel, in a very real way, that the arrangement is their choice. That feeling is part of the system. That feeling is what keeps it running. You domesticated the dog. The dog domesticated you. And the remarkable thing about this arrangement is that neither of you had to understand what was happening for it to work. Evolution does not require understanding. It only requires that one strategy outlasts another. Tonight, when the cat sits by its bowl and stares at you with those unblinking eyes, you will get up. You will fill the bowl. And somewhere in the long, strange chain of cause and effect that stretches back 15,000 years, a wolf somewhere made a decision that is still running inside your behavior right now. The animal did not tame you by force. It tamed you by making itself impossible to ignore. And you called that domestication when you did it. Maybe it is time to recognize it when it is done to you.